we're excited today to have a special guest, Simon Lee, to share his knowledge and experience in creating the CRCLR House, which you might have already seen again in the course. So Simon was the co-founder of the CRCLR House project, and he was also the managing director of its construction vehicle. And we actually first became aware of the CRCLR House, which is in Berlin, when I actually did an accelerator program with Impact Hub, who is the company now inhabiting the space, the CRCLR House. And I can vouch and say that it's really beautiful. It's a really good vibe. Recommend if you're in Berlin to check it out. So yeah, the building project was actually happening between 2019 and finished around 2023, but I think there's still some construction happening. Simon, you can confirm this. So yeah, we wanted to introduce Simon to you all because he has experience firsthand in building a circular project in real life. So maybe he can be kind of an inspiration to you as you're creating your own circular projects. And yeah, I will give the mic to Simon, who will share a little bit more about the project. But yeah, please pay attention. We know this topic is super important because, yeah, the way we're building today is depleting resources, destroying habitats, emitting huge amounts of carbon. So yeah, we're very excited about Simon and his project, the CRCLR House. All right, Simon, I'll hand over to you. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer, for the invitation. Hello, everyone. I'm Simon. I brought hundreds of pictures with me now, but I won't go through them all. I will just very briefly, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max, just show you some impressions of the building and of the process, and then just really feel free to ask any questions you have, because I'm not sure exactly what your backgrounds are of your individual projects. I just heard they are very, very exciting. And then I can go more into depth depending on your questions. Yeah, as Jennifer said, the CRCLR House is a building here in Berlin, Neukölln. And I'll just go through it very briefly. Here's a Google map. No, I'll just skip it. This was for a different event, so I just reuse this presentation. And here you see the CRCLR House as it was a couple of years ago. It was an existing building of a brewery. And our mission or dream was to reuse, refurbish, and yeah, actually build a circular house that can show, or actually can show that the theory of circular design, of which there are plenty, can actually be implemented in real life. This was the goal. And I think when we started, I just skip through it while I talk. When we started, we went through a learning journey. We visited several projects in Europe where we thought maybe they are like pioneers in circular construction. At that point, the circular economy had a boom, but nobody knew how to do it. Yeah, there were just many reports of McKinsey's and so on of the potential of a circular economy and how you can actually redesign supply chains. And the waste was just defined as inefficiencies in value creation chains. But this sounds so nice in theory, and you can do many nice PowerPoints on it. But in real life, to build a building, for example, in our case, it was a building in a circular way, was really like new territory for every one of us. And when we visited the project, it was very what we realized is that there's a lot of makeup, so it sounds nice. You can make a nice pitch about it, but the real impact on it, the real CO2 savings and so on were minimal. And we thought maybe we can try it better. So the whole house was an experiment in itself. So here you just see some impressions of that time. We did many so-called subotniks. And here you see subotniks, which means like free voluntary work. We went into the building, we tried to sort the existing waste, and we thought we are very, very creative and we can reuse all the waste. It's just secondary resource. because we are so creative and smart. But of course, the realization was after 5 minutes real life contact, it doesn't work. And here you see some impressions of the waste we sorted, but we were not able to reuse all of that. We also, as you can see here, we had a team, we called it Collective Construction Site. We had a full team. It was also during Corona, which meant there were many people without a job that were capable of doing work. Normal companies didn't want to work in a circular way with reused material because there are many legal questions around it, how to deal with it. And so we hired around 40 people and just did it ourselves, many things. And we had so-called construction part hunters in our team. They cycled through the town and tried to look for waste material on demolition sites. And we got all of it on the into the building and tried to reuse it. Here you see impressions of it. All these toilets are now used in the impact hub, for example. Here I just show some before after images. So here you see the existing hall and the steel beams. Here you see some, sorry for my English, some Waschbecken. I don't know the English term, where you wash your hands. And we sinks. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
And yeah, we combine it, and here this is how they are today. We just use the steel beams as a construction part of the as a component, basically. Here you see before and after, where before is nicer than after. This was like a fail. We did many experiments, and of course some of them failed. We got a staircase from a shopping mall, and so this could be a nice main entrance of the impact hub. People helped us and sliced it with a laser cutter, and then we never were able to actually attach it again. So this was, yeah, and then we sold it and we're happy about the rising steel price. But this was a real failure. I get many traumata if I see these pictures. This was painful. Yeah, and we have many stories like this where we try to use waste or reuse material. And the second part of how we design a circular building is not only building with waste, but also actually building with new material in a way that after the life cycle of a building, you can reuse the new material again. And here, this is the story behind this image is it's very easy to do nice renderings and models. This was how the circular house was supposed to look like. And after 2 years of a lot of work and a lot of money invested, we stopped the whole process because we realized all our visions in a circular sense got diluted in reality. In every meeting, we sacrificed a bit of the vision because of money, because of time, because of various legal reasons. And in the end, we realized if we really continue to build it, it will be a normal house. It will not be affordable anymore and not sustainable anymore. And so we put it all into waste bin and we started the whole process. And this was like the process where we said, we have to start from zero again, because our first try failed, but now we don't have time and money left. So we did a process which normally takes 2 years. We squeezed it into a sprint of 3 months, and everybody was on board. And then the result was, or one conclusion of it was, for example, that so that this mistake doesn't happen again, that we put the circular aspect into the core of our demand as a construction company. We put it into every contract, into paragraph number 1, so that we don't forget again why we are doing what we are doing. This was a big learning. Yeah, this is a construction site. Here's the existing building, and then we put another 2 buildings on top of that building. And as a conclusion of this circular approach, we used 100% wood in the Aufstockung. I don't know the English word again. So in the building, on top of the building, we used straw as insulation, which is a very old technique, nothing new about that. But in this size, it was very new and still is. Yeah, this is one successful example. Those windows, we found them in Switzerland. Very high quality windows, normally very expensive. And we got them in 4 overseas containers. put new glass into it, and adjusted the whole planning process to the material we already have on site, which is the other way around how you normally plan. This is how it looks like today. So here you see the existing building Impact Hub, and then here is living. There's a living project, a political one, and some other offices. Yeah, and then here's some vanity slide, very nice quotes in German about it. I will skip it. And the next project we do where we try to scale the learning we did is a project called Vollgut. Here's a circular house, which was around 5,000 square meters. And now the next years we want to do that and scale it onto 40,000 square meters. Maybe so far as my input. Are there any questions?
Yeah, please feel free to unmute, raise your hand if there's any questions, or you can drop them in the chat already. Did you have more you wanted to share and you're just taking a break, Simon, or are you
No, I just
finished?
skipped it. I am finished. I try to do it in
Okay.
5 minutes.
Nice. Thank you so much for that amazing presentation and for showing these great pictures of the behind the scenes. It's so cool that you're working on the building next door because now there's like a go-kart kind of racetrack in there, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's so cool. What did you say that you're thinking of building there?
Well, from a circular perspective, I think the main key thing what we try to do there is to work with what is already there. So we don't demolish everything which is there. It's a very complex and old building. There's a weird hall structure on top of it, and we try to reuse it as much as we can and as much as is it possible. And the usage mix will be like a commercial one. It's not living. But for us, commercial, we interpret it in a certain way. So it's always has a purpose for the local area of so that they benefit from it as well.
Mm. Oh, that's so cool. I cannot wait for that. Do you have a timeline already of when you'll
Yes,
start?
timelines are very difficult, but we work on it already for 2 years now.
Okay.
And this year we have to raise a lot of money in order to make it happen. But we are not confident, but motivated. Let's say it like that.
Yeah, while people are thinking of their questions, I have a question. Well, first of all, I think it's amazing that you went into this saying that you want to prove a theory, that it's possible to build a circular house. And I love that you had a very clear vision early on, and later you said, you put that now at the first paragraph so that you can remember the direction that you're heading in. And I also love that you said you were okay with starting again from zero if you weren't going in the right direction. I think those are very important lessons for everyone here who's building a project. Always keep the mission in mind, and be okay to pivot if you find that you're not in line with that mission and vision. I see there's a question here, so I'll hold mine. I'll hold mine back. Let me give the floor to Kira first. Go for it.
Hello. Hi. I had a question regarding retrofitting the pieces that you found, right? Because you were saying that you also found pieces that were the windows and the frames, and these are of course not exactly the sizes that you had planned. So was the retrofitting process one that changed the design almost completely at every stage? And
Yes.
how does that work exactly? I'm just thinking at it from an architect's perspective. You have to always plan everything, submit, and so on. But this is a very ad hoc process, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, totally. I think when we, let's say, ask the architects and planners that we want to find material, and then the first question always is the question you ask, like, what are they supposed to do? Should they like change their plan? And they had a concept behind it. And this is a bit like a big ask to an architect to change it constantly. And we did it all the time. Even during construction, we changed the plans. Like, this is not best practice, it creates a lot of pressure and conflict potential and problems, of course. But this, maybe the learning is next time that there has to be a hard deadline until when you can actually source material. But in this project, we didn't have this yet, and so we sourced it until the end. It didn't stop, and we changed the planning all the time and retrofitted then the planning to the material we want to reuse.
Amazing. Really great project. Thank you.
Thanks, Kira, for your question. Anyone else have a question? Feel free to raise your hand, drop it in the chat. You can also ask around project creation, because you are all conceptualizing and maybe even prototyping a project. Simon has done that, so feel free to ask. I see here one in the chat, so I can read it to you, Simon. If you want to have a look, it's also in the chat. So they ask, what are the experiences with the materials of the upper part of the building now that's used? So how is the wood and straw working? For example, heating, isolation, noise isolation.
Oh, that's a very specific question. I mean, I don't have many years of proof that it works. I think insulation works very well so far, almost too well. But the quality of usage and the quality of air is, of course, I mean, you have a very healthy climate because it's 100% eco materials. Yeah, we insulate with straw, then we use clay and wood, and that's it basically. Regarding heating and energy, there is a full energy concept behind it. We built our own energy central unit, let's say, that provides heating, which aims to at least create 60-70% of the needed heat locally from two buildings. But we are not there yet. Yeah, this has to be proven over the coming years if this really works out. Another concept of this circular approach is that all installations which are normally hidden inside a wall are visible so that it's easier to repair and replace, and nothing is put into a wall. And almost the whole building, and we tried not to use glue, which normally you need, especially in wet rooms and in your bathroom. And we built some prototypes again, and we did many designs by prototype and not by classical planning. And we had a bathroom that works without glue at all, but we were a bit afraid if this really works well. And an experimental bathroom in a wooden structure is quite risky. So we only did it in 6 bathrooms, and the rest we did conventional because we were afraid. Yeah.
Thanks for your question, and thanks for your answer, Simon. It's okay. I think safety is important. But yeah, it would be really interesting to see those tests in the future. Hey, Alvis, you can feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Hello, Simon. Did you incur in an additional costs because of this process of constant sourcing that you experimented with?
The commercial logic was in the beginning that we said normally you build a window and then you have a budget of, let's say, 100 euros to buy it new. And we said that's our budget. We have to find a window for 0, and then we have 100 euros to pay someone to actually put it in and refurbish it so that it fits. This calculation, because if we can prove this calculation, then it's scalable. Then professionals can build upon it and will do it as well, because then I don't have to say it's good for the environment, but I can say I save money for same quality. There I have to say, in some experiments, it worked very well. I showed you the windows, for example. There, this was like a six-figure budget for 600 square meters of windows. So there we were cheaper and we saved tons of CO2. We did a very...
Oh, Simon, you're on mute. But it just happened, so we heard everything before.
Okay,
Don't
I was
worry.
just wondering if I just talked 2 minutes with myself.
No, we heard you. We
All
heard
right,
you.
all right. So there were experiments where it worked very well, and then there were experiments where this constant replanning, refurbishing, trying out by prototyping, which sounds nice, but it's very complex in reality. Maybe you have to try it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and in the end you still didn't succeed and you have to bury the experiment. Then it was more expensive than classical. And for us, I say the main cost was in logistics because we are not professionals in it. And if I would build the circular house number 5 or number 10, then I think it would be really cost efficient, because then we know what works and what doesn't, and I don't have to try out everything. But in project number 1, you have these transitional costs and someone has to pay it. And in this case, we were not willing to pay it, but we were somehow open to it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And I also wanted to ask, what made you lose your vision, as you said, at some point? What do you think are the reasons there?
I think there is this story of the frog in boiling water. You know, the water gets hotter and hotter bit by bit, and he doesn't notice it because it's not instant, and then he dies. And this is, I think, what happened to us as well. So there was no one instance or one meeting where we said, let's bury the vision of a circular house. It was just, maybe we use this material and not that material. It's a bit cheaper. Maybe we use this and not that. And many small decisions. And in the end, it was a wake-up call that we realized this will be super expensive, very nice, very sexy building. But what did I achieve? I made a nice, expensive building, and this is a non-circular one. And this was not what we were aiming for, you know.
Okay.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Elvis.
Thank you.
We have a couple questions from Natasha. Let me ask the second one here. So Natasha asks, what was the biggest challenge that you faced during the creation of this project? I would add especially in Berlin or Germany, if there were any extra layers.
I mean, if I look back on the last years, I can say the glorious version of, you know, as a track record, oh, we did this and that, and from milestone to milestone, and it's a big success. But the true story is, of course, we jumped from almost dead to conflict to crisis all the time. Yeah. And the construction site, and I'm not an expert. Yeah, it was my first building ever. So I think that's increases the amount of stress. And at the time we built the circular house, there was Corona, this COVID. This was not easy. You had the explosion of costs, at least in Germany. So they increased like exponentially. This was not easy. We had the Ukraine war. This was not easy. Financing costs quadrupled over the course of months. Yeah, and this was not easy. And this all squeezed into 3 years. Yeah. So we had many financing problems. We had to raise more money again, and then more money again, and then more money again. This while managing a construction site. So I think the whole process was quite challenging. So I cannot say this was one main challenge, but the whole thing. But who am I talking to? I mean, you are all doing your projects. Maybe you know what I'm talking about.
Amazing. Thank you, Simon, for sharing that. We're very close to time already. Goes by super fast. Marco will copy some of the questions that weren't asked. And maybe if you're open, Simon, we can share those with you to answer for the participants here. Maybe as a final word, I would ask, what is your hope for the future of construction?
I think if I look back, it was kind of pioneer work. And I hope that this becomes normal. I mean, the real estate and construction sector creates 55% of the waste material in Germany, at least. So if you make a small change there, the leverage is massive. And all the time when people asked, and when we talked about how we want to build to companies and planners, they were always skeptical and were like, so like you want to change the world, Simon? Is this what you want? And we were always like, yeah, exactly, that's what we want. And it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, in the 30 experiments we did, maybe 2 of them work, but that's already a big thing if we scale it. So this would be a good, I think, a nice goal, that this becomes a new normal and nothing fancy.